It started with a whisper behind a half-closed door. "He won't last the year," my eldest said. "Then we split the properties in cash." "I already called a realtor," the youngest replied. "Don't forget the bonds. And the boat. I want the boat." I stood in the hallway, hand resting on the wall for balance, not because I was weak, but because I'd never imagined I'd raise 3 vipers under my roof. I'd made the mistake of giving too much, too early, without ever demanding gratitude. I handed them homes, tuition, startup capital, down payments, all wrapped in trust. And now they watched me like vultures. Not for my wisdom, not for guidance. Just for my pulse to stop. They moved back into the house after their mother passed. Claimed it was to look after me. But they took my room, ate my groceries, and left their mess for me to clean like I was some worn-out housekeeper. "You should be thankful we're here at all," my daughter snapped when I asked her to wash a dish. "You're lucky we even let you stay in your own house," said my middle son. "You can barely manage your own mail." "It's time we handled your affairs," the youngest said, holding power of attorney papers he'd drawn up himself. They smiled in public. Called me "Daddy" at brunches, posed for photos with their arms wrapped around my shrinking frame. But behind closed doors, I was a burden they were already packing away in their minds. What they didn't know was this. I wasn't dead yet. And they were about to learn that no inheritance is free. I wasn't born with much. I built everything with my hands, my back, and a deep refusal to let my family live like I did growing up, shame-colored walls, leaking faucets, and meals that came out of cans. At 24, I married Lena. She taught music, made tea from herbs she grew in the yard, and believed in me when I had nothing to offer but a rented garage and a blueprint of a business in my head. While I laid tile for 12 hours a day, she made dinner and knitted baby socks for children we hadn't yet planned. By 30, I had a flooring company. By 35, 2 trucks, 5 employees, and enough to buy a modest 3-bedroom on the hill where Lena could plant her wildflowers. That's when the children came, Eli, Leah, and Aaron. I gave them everything. Private school, even when it meant taking loans. Piano lessons because Lena dreamed they'd love music like she did. Tutors, sleepaway camps, braces, ski trips, cars at 17. Every Christmas, I maxed out cards to make sure the tree looked like a catalog. Every birthday was themed, photographed, curated. Even when business dipped, I worked weekends, skipped lunch, drove a rattling van so they could each have their first-choice college. Eli studied finance. Leah got a degree in communications and turned influencer overnight. Aaron bounced through 3 majors but always had the newest phone, the trendiest shoes, the tuition paid, no questions asked. And still, I was the fool with paint on his jeans. After Lena died, so sudden, a stroke in the kitchen between boiling pasta and humming old jazz, something in them shifted. Or maybe it had always been there, and her gentleness was the glue. They were warm at the funeral. Loving, even. But as soon as the casseroles stopped and the condolences faded, they began circling the house like it was some prize they'd forgotten to claim. "Dad, you shouldn't be alone in that big place," Leah said one afternoon, sliding her sunglasses into her purse. "We can move in. Help out. Keep you company." What she meant was, "We want your house." Eli offered to organize my finances, just to keep things streamlined, Dad. Within weeks, he had access to my accounts, and I noticed charges I didn't recognize. Upscale restaurants. A vacation booking in his name. Aaron parked his car on the lawn and treated my home like a bachelor pad. Friends came and went. The fridge emptied faster than I could fill it. I asked once, gently, if they planned to contribute to bills. They laughed. "Dad, you're still sharp," Eli said, patting my back. "But let us take care of things now. You've earned your rest." Rest. They meant silence. Invisibility. Death. One night, I passed by the open door to the office I once used to balance books and review bids. I heard Eli mutter, "We just need him to officially sign things over. His mental decline could work in our favor." Leah replied, "Start saying he forgets stuff. Document it. It'll make things easier when we file. Aaron, he barely knows what day it is half the time. Shouldn't be hard." They laughed. Light, casual, entitled. My chest tightened, not from sadness, but from awakening. They didn't need an inheritance. They needed a reckoning. The tipping point came on a Wednesday. I'd gone into the garage to find my old fishing pole. Lena and I used to take the kids to Whisper Lake every spring. It was one of the few things I'd kept untouched since she passed. Tucked behind boxes, next to our wedding blanket and a wooden crate filled with her sheet music. But when I opened the cabinet, it was gone. So was the blanket. So were the boxes. I walked back inside, down the hallway that had once echoed with Lena's laughter, and found Leah in the kitchen, cutting avocado with a knife she didn't know how to hold properly. "Have you seen the garage stuff?" I asked, voice even. She didn't even look up. "Oh," Eli called a junk hauler. Said it was all dusty and taking up space. The air left my lungs. "You threw out your mother's things?" Leah blinked, genuinely confused. "They were old, Dad. Moldy. Not worth keeping." I stood there in silence while she wiped her hands on the dish towel Lena had embroidered. Later that day, I saw Aaron listing my boat online. The one I'd spent 4 summers restoring with my own hands, the one Lena christened with a bottle of sparkling cider and named Patience. "I don't use it anymore," he said. "Figured I'd help you offload it." "You." "Not him. Me." The language was subtle but sharpened. I told him to take the listing down. The next day, it was back up, with a reduced price. Eli had moved my tax folders into a banker's box and relabeled it, "Dad's Clutter." When I asked about the property tax bill I'd left on the counter, he smiled. "Handled it. I paid from your account. You've got enough sitting there, you're not exactly going on vacation anytime soon." They'd begun signing my name on things. Without asking. I confronted Eli, and he waved a folder at me. "You gave me power of attorney. You forgot." I hadn't forgotten. I'd never signed it. But the signature looked like mine. And the notary? Someone Leah knew from her yoga studio. They started talking louder when they thought I was out of earshot. They spoke in numbers. Market estimates. Probate strategy. Liquidation. As if I were a portfolio, not a person. I sat at the kitchen table one evening, flipping through Lena's recipe book, one of the last things I'd managed to hide away, and listened as my children debated which of them would get the upper lot, once I, inevitably slipped. They didn't notice I was there. They didn't notice anything anymore. Not the man who built their rooms, painted their ceilings with glow-in-the-dark stars. Not the man who worked through pneumonia to pay for Eli's tuition. Not the man who sold his wedding ring to cover Leah's medical bills when she was 23. I was a placeholder. A soft-spoken roadblock between them and their imagined empire. They thought I didn't see. They thought I was old, soft, tired, sentimental. They were right about one thing. I had gotten tired. Tired of pretending not to hear. Tired of being grateful for scraps of decency. Tired of watching my home become a showroom for their arrogance. But more than tired, I was aware. And awareness, quiet, patient, razor-sharp, was the one thing they hadn't counted on. I stopped eating dinner at the table. I'd sit in the sunroom instead, where Lena used to do her puzzles, with a tray on my lap and soup I didn't taste. I'd listen to the sounds of my house, occupied by people who treated me like an expired utility. Leah complained about the internet speed. Eli wanted to upgrade the kitchen to add value. Aaron kept bringing strangers over, calling it networking, while their laughter filled rooms I used to pray in. I became invisible. Not metaphorically. Functionally. I'd walk into a room and find them whispering. Stop mid-step and see Leah swipe something from my drawer. Hear Eli on the phone, once we prove diminished capacity, it's open season. They didn't even lower their voices anymore. I began misplacing things, on purpose. Keys. Wallet. Even a bill or two. Let them believe I was slipping. Let them lean all the way into their delusion. But inside, I was breaking. Not in the way they assumed. Not a mental break. An emotional one. Because this wasn't about the money. Not really. It was about erasure. The man who taught them how to drive, who sat beside them when their hearts were broken, who walked Lena down a gravel hospital corridor and promised he'd keep them safe, that man had become inconvenient. Leah once posted a photo of my porch to her followers. Caption, helping dad downsize. Hashtag new chapters hashtag minimalism. Eli said in passing, we'll need you to sign off on the deed soon. We've got a buyer lined up. A buyer. Lena's flowers still bloomed in the garden. Her wind chimes still danced on the porch she'd painted blue. And they were selling it like a used lawnmower. I didn't cry. I couldn't. Something in me had hardened past that point. Like a scar you can't feel anymore. But I did start talking to Lena's photo more often. What do I do now? I'd whisper. No answer ever came. Just the quiet flick of leaves outside the window and the soft tick of the grandfather clock she'd picked out on our 30th anniversary. Then, one night, I found an old letter from her. It was tucked in the back of her recipe book. Folded twice. Yellowed, but her handwriting was steady as ever. If you're reading this alone, you're probably carrying too much, like always. Don't let them turn you into a shadow, my love. You were never meant to fade. I read that line again and again. Don't let them turn you into a shadow. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the sunroom until the sky went lavender. I wasn't broken. I was waiting. And now the waiting was over. The morning after I read Lena's letter, I made eggs the way she used to, slow heat, pinch of rosemary, toast butter to the corners. Not because I was hungry, but because I needed to remember I still could. Then I opened the safe behind the linen closet. It hadn't been touched in years. The key was taped inside an old vitamin bottle in the back of the cabinet. Eli had once joked that safes were boomer paranoia. I let him believe I had nothing to hide. Inside were the originals. The deed to the house, paid in full. My living trust, signed long ago but never shared. The folder labeled, emergency only, in Lena's handwriting. I opened it. Inside. A separate, secret account in my name only, untouched since 1998, grown quietly with dividends. A notarized letter Lena and I had written after her diagnosis. A copy of the original will, unsigned, intentionally left dormant in case we ever needed to take a different path. I sat with it all for a long time. They thought they had power of attorney. What they had was a stack of unauthorized paperwork and 3 forged initials. They thought they could sell my home. What they didn't know was I had moved it into a trust months before they arrived. Quietly. With Lena's old friend Marianne, now a retired estate planner, who still owed me for redoing her hardwood floors in '03. I called Marianne that morning. Told her it was time. Finally, she said. You ready to be the man they forgot you were? I never stopped being him, I said. They just stopped looking. Next, I made a call to a realtor I trusted, an old student from Lena's piano class, now a broker with her own firm. Not to sell, I told her. To appraise. Planning to move, she asked. No, I said. Planning to prove a point. I booked appointments. I took notes. I walked the house with a notepad and pen like I did when I still wore work boots and fixed things myself. Every mark on the wall, every squeaky floorboard, they all became part of my plan. I contacted the sheriff's department and filed a quiet complaint about suspected identity fraud, purely precautionary, I said. Just a concerned senior citizen asking questions. They gave me a file number and a handshake. Then I ordered a small safe deposit box at a bank across town. Rented under a new P.O. box. Transferred the bonds. Moved the backup documents. Made copies. Dated them. For the first time in months, I started walking differently. Leah noticed. "You okay, Dad?" she asked, sipping from a $9 oat milk latte she'd charged to my card. "Better," I said. "Clearer." Eli raised an eyebrow. "You're not thinking of changing anything, are you?" I smiled. "Oh, I've already changed quite a lot." They didn't ask what I meant. Because people like them only ask questions when they think it benefits them. And by the time they thought to ask, it would be far too late. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I didn't throw them out. I waited. I let Leah complain about the thermostat. Let Aaron borrow my car and bring it back with crumbs in the seat. Let Eli lecture me about asset optimization. I nodded. Smiled. Listened. And quietly unraveled the net they thought they had me caught in. The first string I pulled was the utilities. I moved all the accounts back under my name, then changed the passwords and email notifications. The next day, I canceled the premium cable Leah couldn't live without. No explanation. She pouted like a teenager. "Wi-Fi's out," Aaron barked from the den. "I'm not sure why," I said. "These companies, hard to understand when you're older, I suppose." He muttered something under his breath. Then I had the locks changed. Not all of them, just the attic, the garage side door, the drawers in the office. Just trying to feel a little safer, I told Eli. "You never know these days." He gave me a look. I returned it with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. A week later, I visited the county clerk's office. Quietly. With the real trust paperwork in hand. I sat with a patient woman named Cheryl who reviewed everything. Legal. Bulletproof. Final. "Would you like to add a no contest clause?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Let's make it very clear." At home, I started returning things to their proper places. Lena's photo went back on the mantel. Her music box on the hallway table. Her bench, long gone, was replaced with a replica I'd ordered secretly from the same carpenter who made the first. It arrived one morning. I signed for it. No one asked what it was. I placed it beneath her favorite tree. Eli saw it from the kitchen. "What's that?" "A gift," I said. "From who?" "From me." And I left it at that. 2 days later, I revoked the forged power of attorney. Didn't announce it. Just filed it. Then I removed Eli's access to my accounts. Reported his previous actions to the fraud department. They said they'd investigate. I said, "Take your time." Leah's designer clothing packages started getting returned. She came storming into the kitchen. "Why is the card declining?" "No idea," I said. "Might be that I changed the limit." "You can't do that." "I can," I replied, "when it's my card." She didn't respond. Just stared. Aaron tried to withdraw from my brokerage account. He called me in a rage. "Why is it locked?" "Because you don't own it," I said. "You never did." "You're being ridiculous, Dad." "No," I said softly. "I'm being awake. The last thing I did was change my will. I made copies. Gave one to Marianne. One to the lawyer Lena trusted. And one to the fireproof box in my new apartment. Because that was the final move, I left. One morning, while they were all out, I loaded up a single suitcase, my photo albums, Lena's recipe book, and the last unopened letter she ever wrote. I locked the house. Left a note. I lived here. You just existed in it. The keys no longer work. The name on the deed isn't mine anymore. You may want to find somewhere else to live by next week. Dad. No signature. No goodbye. Only silence. The first call came that evening. Blocked number. I didn't answer. The second came at dawn, Leah's name flashing across my new phone's screen like an emergency alarm. I watched it ring from the comfort of my new apartment, sunlight stretching across polished floors that weren't scuffed by careless shoes or muddied boots. They'd woken up to find the house locked, the alarm system reset, their phone apps disconnected from the security feeds. They couldn't get into the garage. Couldn't access the bank accounts. Couldn't reach their burden. The third call, a voicemail. Eli's voice, sharp and furious. Dad, what did you do? Where are you? This isn't funny. You better explain yourself before we take legal action. Legal action. The phrase echoed like a joke in an empty church. My next stop that morning was Cheryl at the county office, who confirmed everything had been processed. The house, my house, was now under the Hayes Trust, its contents protected. It couldn't be sold, mortgaged, or borrowed against without the trustee's signature. That trustee? Me. And I had just named a successor trustee in writing, the local arts program Lena supported for 2 decades. Eli called again, this time from a different number. Don't do this. You're overreacting. We're your children. Children. Not sons. Not daughter. Children. That word used to mean something. Now it was a tactic. A few days later, a lawyer representing Leah reached out. A tone so polite it rang hollow. She's concerned for your well-being, Mr. Hayes. She believes recent changes may be evidence of declining capacity. I'd been waiting for that. I faxed over the updated evaluations, 2 clean mental competency assessments from state-licensed professionals. Both recent. Both irrefutable. There would be no guardianship. No contested paperwork. No court interference. They had planned for an old man in a robe forgetting names. Instead, they got a fully lucid patriarch who beat them at their own game. Aaron texted only once. We didn't mean it like that. We were just trying to help. Help. The same kind of help that steals keys, empties fridges, and sells benches with names carved into the wood. I replied. You didn't mean it at first. Then you meant it completely. Now, you just regret getting caught. No response. Later, I received photos. Leah standing outside the front gate, her makeup streaked, holding a cardboard sign, Dad, let us in. This isn't you. Eli waiting outside the lawyer's office, hoping to talk me into reconsidering. Aaron sitting on the curb, stunned that entitlement had limits. And I sat at my window, warm mug in hand, Lena's blanket across my knees, thinking not of vengeance, but of peace. Because peace isn't always quiet. Sometimes it's the sound of doors locking behind you. Sometimes it's knowing you gave everything, and when they threw it back in your face, you took back your name, your dignity, your life. They asked for a meeting. Leah sent the email. Formal. Structured. Written like a ceasefire agreement. We'd like to speak. Civilly. Just to understand. I chose the place, a small cafe on the edge of town where no one knew me as anything more than a quiet man who tipped well and always sat by the window. They arrived late, of course. Entitlement never understood punctuality. Eli led the way, buttoned shirt, polished watch, mask of composure stretched too tight. Leah followed, eyes already misted, lips pursed in permanent performance. Aaron trailed behind, hands in pockets, avoiding my gaze. They sat. No hug. No greeting. Just the weight of old furniture and fresher mistakes. Eli spoke first. "Dad, this has gotten out of hand." "No," I said calmly. "This is exactly where it belongs." Leah reached for my hand. I pulled it away gently, like someone folding a memory back into a drawer. "You've cut us out," she whispered. "You've locked us out of your life." "I gave you 30 years, I said. And you sold them on Facebook Marketplace." Aaron's voice was low. "We just thought, you needed help." I nodded slowly. "You didn't offer help. You offered removal. You wanted to replace me, before I stopped breathing." Eli leaned in. "You don't understand how hard life is now. The market, inflation, the pressure." "I started with nothing," I interrupted. "I came home with blisters and debt and gave you a childhood with piano lessons and private schools. Don't talk to me about pressure." They flinched. Then, Leah's mask cracked. "We were scared," she said. "You were shrinking. You stopped calling. You looked so small." I let the words hang in the air. "Yes," I said finally. "Because grief shrinks a man. Because your mother was gone and none of you said her name once after the funeral." Aaron looked down. I continued, voice steady. "You wanted the house, the money, the things. You forgot the man who built them. You erased the love that created them." Eli's tone turned sharp again. "We were trying to be practical." "No," I said, "you were trying to be wealthy without waiting. You wanted inheritance without patience, loyalty without effort. You saw me as a final step on your investment portfolio." There was no shouting. No accusations. Only quiet truth. "I didn't disown you," I said. "I released you. That house. That money. That legacy. It was never yours. It was loaned to you by love. And you defaulted." Leah cried. Aaron bit his lip. Eli stood up. "So that's it?" he asked. "You're just done with us?" I met his gaze. "I'm done pretending you didn't betray me." He hesitated, then turned and walked out. Leah lingered, sobbing into a linen napkin. Aaron whispered, "I'm sorry. And I meant it when I said, I hope you become the kind of men your mother would have been proud of. I truly do." Then I stood, left money for my tea, and walked out into the crisp air. The sun was low, gold spilling across the sidewalk like forgiveness. They had wanted my future. But I had reclaimed my present. I moved into a small cottage on the edge of town. Just 2 rooms and a porch with enough space for a chair and a cup of coffee. No vaulted ceilings. No marble counters. Just morning light through real windows and the sound of birds Lena would have whistled back to. It was perfect. I spent my days simply. I learned to make her tea from scratch. I walked to the bakery on Saturdays. I volunteered twice a week at the community center, teaching basic woodworking to kids who listened with their whole hearts and called me Mr. H. They didn't know what I'd lost. They only saw what I still had. I kept a picture of Lena in every room, different ages, different seasons. The one in the kitchen was her laughing with flour on her nose. The one in the hallway, holding Eli as a baby. And the one by my bed, from our last trip together, her hair blowing in the wind, her eyes squinting into sunlight like she saw something beautiful on the horizon. I didn't talk to my children often. Aaron called once a month. We kept it light. Weather. Sports. Memories that didn't ache. Leah sent a few long emails. I read them all, responded to none. Maybe one day I would. But healing didn't mean reopening every wound. Eli never called again. I kept his childhood drawing in a shoebox, crayon scribbles of our house, a tiny stick figure labeled, Dad. Some things are best left in the past. The trust I'd built with Marianne now funded music scholarships in Lena's name. Every May, I received letters from students who played piano pieces written long before they were born. Dear Mr. Hayes, your wife's story inspired me to keep playing. I want to teach music the way she did. I never met her, but I think she would have liked me. I think so too. On the first anniversary of the move, I built a bench beneath the maple tree behind the cottage. Carved the same initials as the first, L, H, plus J, H. I sat there every morning, the wood warm beneath me, tea in my hand, the world quiet. One morning, I saw a robin land on the fence. Just like the ones Lena used to point out when the kids were small. She'd tap the window and say, "They always return home." I smiled, sipping the tea she taught me how to make, in the peace I'd reclaimed from the silence her absence left behind. I used to think legacy was something you left behind. A house. A check. A last name carved on a mailbox. But that's not legacy. Legacy is what lives in the things no one can steal. The sound of her humming while the kettle boiled. The way my hands still know how to sand a bench smooth. The look on a child's face when they learn something their own father never had time to teach them. My children believed they were owed everything I had. But what I truly had, my love, my strength, my memory of Lena, those things could never be inherited. They had to be honored. Nurtured. Remembered. They wanted the story to end with a signature. Instead, it ended with a beginning. Because I didn't fade. I returned. To myself. To my peace. To the quiet, patient power of someone who has nothing to prove. And everything still worth holding.